Okay folks, what we're currently looking at is the south pole of the moon. You are currently looking at an aperture. An aperture is an opening that closes utilising mechanical devices, as you can clearly see by the triangular section at the aperture that it truly is an aperture. At first it had me bewildered as to what it was, but after looking at the separate sections, looking at the dark hollows, as you can see there, the bright light that is currently coming out of it, this is the real reason why NASA blew up the South Pole. They were trying to open this aperture. In the images, the scene from the shuttle mission that they used to blow up the moon, basically this is not seen. You see clear images of basically of the aperture shut, but when we look here, this is a Google moon image and you can clearly see the aperture is open. I am comparing this aperture to the aperture found in the Earth, which is Atlantis. These next few images are of the Atlantis opening. It's also currently of the city of Atlantis. You can see the round section, but mainly to the fact I'm showing you here is the distortions. You can see a little bit of the round city there, but it's mainly to the distortions that are in the section of the North Pole. You see these same intersections on the moon. Now, these satellites fly over our North Pole all the time. Now, if they were images taken from angles, yes, you would get that appearance, but they're not. We know for a fact that we have craft that fly over the North Pole all the time. They would take natural shots of the North Pole, and the same thing goes with the moon. And we go back to the aperture. You can clearly see that is a perfectly round aperture with a closing segment at the top of it. And when you look in there, you can see other sections of the aperture. And I stress that this is nothing more than an aperture. It is an opening into the hollow moon. And yes, that is a light source coming out of it. And it clearly can be nothing else but an aperture, folks. You can see what look to be paintings or whatever on top of the aperture in certain places. You can see certain places of the terrain pulled back as if a perfectly aperture would do. You can see that there are square sections within this. In other words, this is a mechanical device, and it's clear that it is nothing more than an aperture. And I don't care what anybody says in regard to this one. I know an aperture when I see an aperture. I've been taking enough photos over my life to understand what an aperture does, and I can tell you now that is clearly an aperture. And this is a shot taken in the centre of it. You can clearly see lights were coming up from the centre. This is the North Pole, and again, sorry, I don't know how the North Pole got in here, but we're looking at different shots of the angle. And again, the North Pole, you can see the difference. The North Pole aperture is open, but it's not open as far as the South Pole. As you can see, the bright lights are beaming out of the South Pole. Yeah, you can see the mechanical sections and the square section. That is not pixelation, people. This is a video taken by, from what I have been told, is USGS. They were surveying the North Pole when they saw this event. To me, I personally think it is a terraformer, because we no longer have ice at the North Pole, and the one place where this could happen is the North Pole, where we see the Atlantis opening, which is, if you've clearly watched the Lost City of Atlantis tapes, you'll clearly see that I have found the Lost City of Atlantis at the North Pole, and hence the orange light that we're seeing in the centre of it is basically, sorry for the sound in the background, people, that is the audio from this video. So you'll just have to bear with it, and it may double when it gets played back. I can't help this. I've tried to disable the sound, but I'm having a bit of dramas doing it. So yes, basically I believe that they are terraforming the planet. Any of this crap that they are telling us, they're telling us to reduce our population so that they can take over. And any idiot that believes, and I'm talking to the governments now, any idiot in the governments that believe the Palladian crap and all this, that we're supposed to reduce our population, they want you to reduce the population so you can't fight them. Trust me, we have better chance of fighting them now. Look at their technology. Look at it. It's on the screen. We have a problem on this planet, and if we don't start standing up for ourselves, then we're going to lose our planet. And basically, I don't care what anybody thinks of what I'm saying at the moment, because I'm seeing here evidence of the North Pole, of the opening of Atlantis, and what it's doing. And here, coming up in a minute, is images of that Atlantis opening, when it is basically not doing what it's doing, and this is on Google Earth. And you do have to adjust your angle when you're viewing the North Pole to see the city of Atlantis, and it is truly the round city of Atlantis. You can make out the walls and everything, as you can clearly see in this one. You can see one of the inner walls and one of the outer walls. But it's the distortions used by these crystals that is what is amazing me. You see these on the moon as well. They are on each pole of our planet. They are on each pole of Mars. They are on each pole of Google Earth. And if you look at NASA images on some of the poles, they've covered it up with a black spot because of one reason, and one reason only. It's because the damn apertures are open. You can see here there's a light source coming from below. This is of the North Pole of the moon. You can clearly see light being projected upwards, not across, upwards from the centre, making the optical illusions that we're currently seeing. And yes, if they are this advanced, they would have the technology to cloak using this kind of technology. It's just I found a way around it. By angling the camera, you can actually get past their technology by simply looking through the cracks. And that's what I've done. I've managed to be able to do it with Atlantis. I've managed to do it on the moon. I've managed to do it on Mars. If you've clearly watched my last few videos, you will see this. And especially in regard to Atlantis, because I call them the Atlantis openings, because they are same on Mars, they are same on the moon, and they are the same on Earth. And as we clearly saw there, they are using it to terraform the planet. In other words, to get rid of us. But if we don't fight, humankind has a right to survive. And what I've seen in the last few weeks, i.e. these sort of images, I now believe everything that I've ever read on the net. Because I'm starting to see it for myself, folks. And I'll tell you now, it scares the living shit out of me. And there's no other word for it, folks. I'm sorry, but I had to use that word. Because I can tell you now what we are seeing here. You can see those same distortions that we see in Atlantis. And that is an opening that is open. In other words, we're not seeing the cloaking device there now. We are seeing the opening open. That's the cloaking device on the North Pole in operation. And you can see a light source coming from below. So yes, our hollow planet theory is correct. You can notice that the distortions on the South Pole are different to the distortions on the North Pole. Mainly to the fact that I gathered that the time that the image was taken, that it was being used. In other words, it was being opened. And there are numerous, and I mean numerous NASA images where you will see a black dot pasted over the poles, including, and it's very popular on the Mars ones. And whenever you're looking at the South Polar region of Mars, there is a dirty, big black spot. It's also the same place where I found the image that has been so-called covered up by changing the location, but it's the same place. And what you're seeing here is basically the end of the tape, and I'm talking to myself for nothing.